Part 39. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 382. Okay, don't scare the Lord anymore. Zhuo stood between Weiyan and Gao Qiang calmly, and then showed a kind smile to Weiyan. Compared to this, I would rather see the main control room return to its original clean state. What do you think, Commander Security? Listening to Zhuo's words, Weiyan also realized that he had just lost his composure. Okay. With that said, Weiyan called a few helpers through the console to clean out all the garbage that had accumulated over the years in the main control room. At this time, the main control room looked like it should, although it still seemed a bit empty. Weiyan naturally sat down in the commander-in-chief's position unceremoniously, and several of the people he called also entered the secondary command seats below under Weiyan's arrangement. Immediately afterwards, the entire command room fell into darkness, and images from the universe were projected in front of and above everyone's heads. At the same time, a large amount of parameter data also appeared on the screen operated by Weiyan and others. Rubbing his hands, Weiyan seemed a little impatient. I heard that someone wants to kill the Lord. Who is that person? Is he here now? Looking at Weiyan's appearance, Gao Qiang's head is naturally full of black lines. Isn't it true that everyone can't rely on themselves to order well? Not wanting to talk to Weiyan, Gao Qiang looked at his miracles in this war game through the screen projection in the main control room. In the picture of the planet that can be seen in the projection, the first thing Gao Qiang felt was not a sense of science fiction, but another word, neatness. All the mountains were leveled and all the seas were filled. The entire planet has been planned into neatly divided modules. The extension of every road and the placement of every building are enough to satisfy the obsessive-compulsive disorder. Universal Ideal City. Introduction: we will integrate the world into one city and build one city into the world. Effect 1, in the Universal Ideal City, the livability is constant at 100%, and the happiness of the residents increases by 20%. Effect 2, the design of the Universal Ideal City is so ingenious that it will not participate in the revolution of the stars and will remain independent forever. Effect 3, the effect of the Universal Ideal City is constant and will not change due to changes in the surface building. After looking at it all, Gao Qiang found that the Universal Ideal City was indeed just an artificial miracle mainly for residents. Just when Gao Qiang was reading the information and was getting excited, a prompt from the war game made Gao Qiang's expression darken. Lord Paradox casts his gaze at you under the influence of miracle talent. You will receive the Degeneration Theory debuff. Degeneration Theory. Introduction: someone once said that our bodies will gradually become stronger as time goes by, and our technology will become more and more prosperous with the development of time. Nowadays, the emergence of degeneration theory has shattered all wrong views. Effect: the upper limit of your technology tree will enter a cyclic state, and random degradation will be performed once a week. After it degrades to the lowest point, it will return to the current state, and the effect of degradation theory will be removed. Is this another Time Lord? Sure enough, he still chased me, and it was after he entered the war game. Gao Qiang's face didn't look good. Because the Time Lord always chooses to arrive at the time after he enters the war game, it is difficult to use the powerful interference ability against the Time Lord. The consequence of not being able to clear the Time Lord immediately is that Gao Qiang must endure the debuff imposed by the Time Lord while trying to find a way to win the war game. But this time, because of the duel with Eternity, the miraculous talent of What If has been noticed by the Time Lords. The Time Lords obviously chose a more suitable existence to deal with them, as Old Man Lang said. This existence is a paradox. The miracle talent of paradox is different from the means of Eternity. If the method used by Eternity before was to play with the timeline of the past and the present, then paradox is obviously more biased towards the future. The theory of degeneration is to reverse Gao Qiang's future and block the upper limit of Gao Qiang's technology tree layer by layer. Gao Qiang can only use 5th level, 4th level, or even 1st level technology in the 6th level battlefield. But if Gao Qiang really wants to say it, the eternal method is more powerful. When facing eternity, the timeline is cut again and again, which brings a deep sense of powerlessness. As for the paradox, as of now, this miraculous talent can only affect Gao Qiang for less than 2 months at most. In these 2 months, high strength will slowly degrade over time, and the upper limit of the technology tree will drop from level 6 to level 1. If Gao Qiang is lucky, he may only be in danger for a week. If you are unlucky, you only need to survive 5 weeks, and then you can enter a state of offensive and defensive reversal. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang turned to look at everyone. But he found that Wei An was already staring at him with an impatient smile on his face. It seems that the Lord's enemy has arrived. I love resolving grudges most in my life. In such an interesting period, I hope the Lord will allow me to participate. Bai Hexio also reappeared in the main control room, coughed slightly in embarrassment, looked at Gao Qiang and emphasized, "I'm not worried about you, I just want to find someone to vent to." On the other side, Huan's hero also came to the main control room holding the game console. Then he smiled at Gao Qiang, revealing his little tiger teeth. "Many people have come to help the Lord this time. Let's let those guys see how much our ancestors have left behind." Gao Qiang nodded. "So, are there so many familiar faces this time because everyone is worried about their safety?" But after the experience of fighting against eternity, Gao Qiang understood. The weight of the Time Lord race is too high, so at most one may enter at a time in a low-level battlefield. At the same time, they cannot recruit people, because in this situation, even the recruitment price of a person is too expensive for a low-level battlefield. Therefore, Paradox is likely to make the same choice as Eternity and attack itself by looking for agents. It's just that in this war game, most races were cleared by the Zerg. Under the effect of the miracle talent What If, the Time Lord cannot change the previous timeline to revive those races that have been wiped out. So, who should Paradox find to be the agent to attack itself? Could it be a great lord of the Zerg? Just as Gao Qiang was thinking this, the war game prompt came again. Due to the bio group using the rare item, Daejian Index, this war game has entered the final strategic stage. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 383. The 2 lords with the highest development of each race will get the right to choose the final strategy. The decision makers of the human race's final strategy are Gao Qiang and Song Dijun. The decision makers of the Zerg race's final strategy are Gao Qiang of the bio group knows that this is the dominant force of the human side in this war game. Unexpectedly, the other party chose to use the global strange props at this time and directly opened the final strategy selection stage. It seems that the bio group did not give up this battlefield even when it was bound to lose. They tried to use the final strategy to win back this war game. However, Gao Qiang couldn't help but be curious about the direction of the final strategy as the decision maker for the first time. What would be the final strategy that he could choose? Is it the same as other humans, or will it be different because of the special nature of the fallen empire, or will it change according to his actual situation? Because he had never chosen the final strategy before. Without knowing this, Gao Qiang simply opened the final strategy selection interface. Then he was stunned. Unable to build. In the final strategy interface in front of Gao Qiang, only a large cannot build prompt popped up. And the reason why Gao Qiang couldn't use the final strategy seemed to be because he was in the stage of degeneration now. Gao Qiang's eyes swept across the interface. It was different from the ancient times. The Bioconsortium used the large construction indicator to forcibly enter the final strategy stage. Most of the final strategies that can be selected are related to the construction of special war weapons. This also conflicts with Gao Qiang's characteristics of the fallen empire. In this way, before entering the awakening state, Gao Qiang may not be able to use the final strategy option in his hand. At this time, except for Gao Qiang, the other decision makers have made a decision. The human race has started the final strategy, Thor armed giant ship, construction. The Zerg has started the final strategy, Wasp mother, breeding. The Zerg has started the final strategy, biomass remodeling, research. Now, only Gao Qiang has not made the final strategy choice, or in other words, he can't make a choice. In other words, there is one less final strategy than the Zerg. Gao Qiang's eyes flickered slightly, and he had already made a plan in his mind. Although he could not choose the option in his hand for the time being, he would not drag down the human race. Helping the human race to forcibly complete the current final strategy, with the resources in Gao Qiang's hands, it is completely possible. However, this idea has just appeared and has not been put into action. Another war game prompt came in front of Gao Qiang. The human race has completed the final strategy, Thor's armed giant ship. The Thor's armed giant ship has taken off and is heading to the galaxy battlefield. What a fast speed! It seems that the Bioconsortium is also well prepared. As soon as the choice is completed, it will directly complete the construction of the final strategy. On the one hand, it can eat all the contributions of the final strategy alone, and on the other hand, it can catch the Zerg off guard. Suddenly, Gao Qiang turned his head and looked at Wei Yan. Wei Yan, we should have a star map that can see the entire galaxy, right? According to the characteristics of the Fallen Empire, Gao Qiang will directly have a fully opened map every time he enters the war game. This is always the case, and this time should be no exception. As expected, Wei Yan nodded, and then operated at the command position, mapping a brilliant star map in 3D mode to the center of the main control room. Thousands of planets moved slowly in front of Gao Qiang. In this star map, the movement trajectory of each planet, as well as countless red and yellow dots, were marked. Under Wei Yan's description, the red dots are the erosion range of the Zerg, and more than half of the planets in the galaxy are occupied by densely packed red dots. Not only inside the planet, but even in the universe, there are also red dots moving. The yellow dots are the locations of other human units, including the Bioconsortium. Compared with the red dots, the living space of the yellow dots is pitifully small. Only some planets with small orbital curvatures and suitable for human survival will have yellow dots. Although there are yellow dots in the universe, the number of those yellow dots is more than 100 times less than that of the Zerg. There is such a huge gap in quantity alone. No wonder the human race has already established a defeat in this war game. Looking at the star map in front of him, Gao Qiang suddenly noticed that a large area of yellow dots was in contact with the red dots. As time went by, yellow dots or red dots kept disappearing. Is this a war between the human race and the Zerg? After realizing this, Gao Qiang pointed to the area where the two sides were fighting and asked Wei Yan, "Can you zoom in on this area? Is it finally starting?" Wei Yan smiled slightly and enlarged the star map to a panoramic view as Gao Qiang asked. On the star map, tens of thousands of human starships were surrounding the outside of a planet. In the middle of the planet, a giant warship that was dozens of times larger than other warships was slowly taking off, but it had not yet successfully escaped from the gravity of the Earth and entered the space state. Opposite the human fleet were tens of thousands of biological warships from the Zerg. It seems that the achievement of the human race's final strategy still attracted the attention of the Zerg lords. In order to suppress the human race and prevent variables from occurring, the Zerg will not give up the opportunity to destroy the Thor. As for these tens of thousands of biological warships, they are just a small force of the Zerg. Humans can't win this war. With just a glance, Wei Yan gave a positive answer. Even with the Thor, he didn't think humans could win this war unless they took action. Wei Yan slowly licked the corner of his mouth and turned his head to look at Gao Qiang. "Lord, should we help those humans?" "Wait. Baihexia raised his hand, and the voice came from the side. Looking at Wayan, his eyes were full of indescribable emotions. If you want to help, who are you going to let go? It is naturally difficult to reflect from the star map. But the characteristic of the fallen empire is that it will not be located in the birth point of any race when it is born. Therefore, Gaoqiang's current location is quite remote even in the star system. Compared with the location where the Thor was launched, it can be described as far away from the Earth. This long journey might require walking several astronomical units. Let me make it clear first, I definitely won't go, Baihexia said. Wayan was a little speechless, and couldn't help looking at other people in the control room. The people who looked at Wayan turned their heads away one by one, and their eyes had already turned to who knows where. Until Wayan looked at Juluo, Juluo shrugged helplessly, indicating that he didn't intend to go so far. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 384. Oh my old swan, you are not going to let me leave alone, are you? Wayan couldn't help but slam the table and shouted. He is the commander. Whose commander is the first to charge? No, it is not impossible to charge the first. But whose commander is the only one to charge alone? How to charge, with a throw? Shasha shook her head, nodded her lips, and made a suggestion. How about letting the Lord accompany you? Wayan was immediately deflated. It's not a question of who will accompany him. But to be honest, several astronomical units, billions of kilometers away, he doesn't really want to go out unless it is necessary. Forget it, it's too late anyway. According to Wayan's prediction, according to the current distance between the two sides, going there now will only help the group of humans collect the bodies and deal with the Zerg fleet by the way. But since no one is willing to go, forget it. Seeing that everyone on the field has such an attitude, Gaoqiang naturally won't say anything more. He couldn't put a knife on his neck and force everyone to save a few people he didn't even know, right? Thinking of this, Gaoqiang looked at the star map with pity. In this way, the human lords who completed the final strategy can only pray for good luck. Thinking of this, Gaoqiang took out the request for war and used it on the spot. Although I don't know why the Zerg has not achieved victory in the war until now. But it's better to be safe after all. Now there is nothing to worry about. Gaoqiang doesn't want to come in and take such a walk, and then immediately face his first defeat. After using the request for war, Gaoqiang confirmed that the war game will not end before the last human dies in the battle, and then he continued to look at the star map. He wanted to take this opportunity to see how strong the Zerg is. At the same time, in the airspace of Tiancheng Star, the lords who commanded the fleet secretly clenched their fists and sweated for themselves. The number of Zerg biological warships is really too many. So many that it exceeds the detection limit of human radar. Faced with the mighty swarm of Zerg, the combat support system on the starship has long been overwhelmed and completely paralyzed. Corresponding to this is the approaching pace of various biological warships of the Zerg. Fight them. In the human communication channel, a lord cursed in extreme fear. They have been developing in this war game for more than 10 years, and some have even been in it for decades. The human lords are developing and accumulating, and the Zerg are the same. Even the Zerg is developing faster and accumulating more. Going back and forth, they can't see any hope of victory, and there is only deep despair. And now, the emergence of the final strategy has brought a ray of light to the world of many lords. Thor is the only possibility for mankind to turn the tables at present, and the Zerg must not be allowed to destroy it. With fear and hope, these lords commanded the warships and rushed into the Zerg's front first, and the cannons continued to burst out dazzling light. Suddenly faced with such a strong counterattack, the Zerg's forward momentum paused, and they were gradually intersected by the human warships and forcibly strangled together. Mincing meat war is not the ability of the human starship. But now, in order to ensure the safe launch of the Thor, most lords can only do so. Even if it costs their lives, they have to stop the Zerg here. At this time, a sharp and terrified voice broke out in the human channel. The Zerg mothership has entered the field. I saw a huge monster slowly appearing in the Zerg line, which was several times larger than ordinary biological warships. These are naturally Zerg motherships. As the command ship of the Zerg, they are always indispensable in ordinary wars. But their role is not just command. These Zerg motherships often have terrifying combat capabilities. I saw one of the motherships move. The fat meatball similar to the mouthparts pointed to the position of the human starship. Then, the mouthparts shrank violently and spit out a dark purple sputum. If the human race's radar could be more advanced and the image could be enlarged, it would be found that this was not sputum at all. It was countless microscopic larvae gathered together. Puff. The larvae slammed into the surface of the starship and quickly disappeared. To the naked eye, the starship's hull was not damaged at all. But in fact, the larvae underwent metamorphosis as soon as they came into contact with the starship, growing into extremely aggressive tiny Zerg units and drilling into the interior of the starship. In an instant, the starship's internal communication channel was completely occupied by screams. "It's the Zerg are coming in from the cooling pipes. The Zerg are corroding the energy reactor, start the backup energy. Close the hatch, those guys are coming in. The main gun module is offline, the engine module is shut down, no, the safety valve is invalid, all the hatches can't be closed. It hurts, those beasts are eating me, save me, save me." After a period of chaos in the communication channel, everything went quiet and fell into complete silence. And this starship hit by the spit out by the Zerg mothership has completely become a floating iron coffin in the universe. This scene is still happening everywhere on the battlefield. With the entry of the Zerg mothership, the advantage that the human race had tried to establish could not be sustained even for a moment. Fortunately, the Thor was finally about to leave the orbit of Tiancheng star and enter the space mode where it could fight. In the bridge of the Thor, Song Di-jun sat safely in the main seat, sipping coffee and looking at the battle report from the front line. T1 defense line starship remaining, 79%. T2 defense line starship remaining, 11%. T3 defense line has been breached and is being reorganized according to Plan A. T4 defense line. The human race's starships are already at a disadvantage in terms of number. Under the Zerg mothership's attack at all costs, the situation in almost every defense line area is not optimistic. If this continues, it will only be a matter of time before the Zerg rushes over Tiancheng star and destroys the Thor. Finally, someone couldn't help but turn around and ask the leisurely Song Di-jun, "Boss, is it time to show our fleet?" It may be difficult for the fleets of those scattered lords to resist this round of Zerg attacks. Song Di-jun supported his face and slowly looked at the person who spoke, showing a half smile. "Then in your opinion, what should I do?" Facing Song Di-jun's smiling eyes, the person who spoke swallowed his saliva and continued, "At present, the consortium still has tens of thousands of starships hidden in various corners. As long as these starships are summoned and attacked from behind, the Zerg will be caught off guard. According to the strength of the consortium's starships, it is more than enough to protect the Thor. Even we can also annihilate this batch of Zerg fleets here. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire?" Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 385. "Oh, I see." Song Di-jun nodded, not quite understanding. Then, he changed the subject. "Stupid." The man who heard the words knelt down subconsciously. "Manager, please give me another chance." However, Song Di-jun had already pressed a button beside him, and a transparent pipe fell from the sky, covering the Lord who had just spoken. Then, a huge suction force came from the pipe, sucking the speaker away and throwing him into space. After doing all this, Song Di-jun slowly withdrew his hand. I hate stupid people to point fingers in front of me the most in my life. It's just a small fleet of Zerg. Even if they are all destroyed, it will not hurt the whole battle. Besides, I have other arrangements for the consortium's fleet. Listening to Song Di-jun's words, the other lords in the Thor immediately looked at their feet in silence, not daring to respond. If you say that Song Jun is good in every way, it's just that he has a bad fate. No one knows what will happen if he responds to him. After seeing that no one was pointing fingers at his decision, Song Di-jun nodded with satisfaction and turned around. No one noticed that the moment Song Di-jun turned around, a shadow of a clock flashed through his eyes. You said you would help me win this war. Song Di-jun looked up at an empty corner and said in words that only he could hear. And he also got a response from the unknown existence. Yes. As long as you complete my task, I will make you the winner of this war game. Song Di-jun rolled his eyes and did not respond immediately. In fact, a long time ago, he could occasionally hear something talking in his mind. At first, he thought he was crazy. It was not until later that the other party commanded him to successfully avoid the Zerg's pursuit again and again and gain a foothold in the galaxy that he believed in the other party's real existence. Moreover, he confirmed that the other party had no ill will towards him. That existence just wanted to kill a human lord with his own hands. As a reward for the task, after the death of that human lord, he would help him to wipe out the Zerg and win the final victory of this war game. But so far, you have nothing to prove. Song Di-jun said, I have started the final strategy as you requested, but next, how can I believe that you can really help me defeat the Zerg? After all, he is a businessman and a big executive in the Bio Consortium. To Song Di-jun, the golden finger in the novel sounded too naive. He only recognized the bloody reality that was nakedly displayed in front of him. Even if the other party helped him several times, as long as he could not show his true value to him, then the previous help would naturally be completely invalidated. Now, he is asking for a deposit for him to carry out the task. There was silence in the air for a while, and then the voice continued to come. You will know whether what I said is true or false if you attack the Zerg fleet now. At this time, the Thor happened to leave the orbit of Tiancheng star and completely entered combat status. Song Di-jun's eyes moved, but he finally chose to believe the voice in his mind. Whether what the other party said was true or false depends on this time. If the other party deceived him, Song Di-jun would not hesitate to order all the fleets of the consortium to launch a surprise attack on the Zerg and fight the Zerg to the death with all his strength. Hide all the words in your heart. Song Di-jun turned around again and ordered the many crew members under the bridge, aim at the Zerg mothership and attack. Yes. One by one, the crew members began to take up their posts and debug the attack of the Thor. The cooling valve has been started and there is no fault. The energy core is lifting the restrictions. The diffusion core is ready and confirmed to be safe. Attack posture indicates that the front is clear. As the Thor issued one command after another, all the human starships blocking the Thor scattered to both sides. After seeing the Thor, the Zerg began to get agitated and gave up chasing other starships, and rushed towards the Thor. It was at this time. All parameters are normal, the main gun Sky Meteorite Thunder Punishment launched an attack. A dazzling flash cut through the galaxy, and the radar screens of all starships were only a daylight. And in the daylight, there were still tens of thousands of violent arcs hidden. ZZ. When the day ended, all that was left in front of the Thor was a large biological mothership that had turned into charcoal. Suddenly, there was a cheer in the channel. This attack destroyed at least 2 Zerg motherships, and a large number of biological warships escorting the motherships also perished as a result. Humanity, there is hope. Listening to the joy in the channel, Song Di-jun couldn't help but curl his lips. He was naturally very satisfied with the power of the Thor's main gun. Although the ability of this main gun to penetrate the shield is a bit poor, it can cause several times the damage to biomass and alloy units. Even the previously invincible Zerg mothership could only be killed instantly in front of the Thor. But, this is not enough. Song Di-jun's smile gradually faded. There were only two motherships. Although the Thor was strong, there was only one. It is impossible to penetrate the entire Zerg fleet with just one Thor. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise came from under the bridge. Remaining energy of the energy core, 100%. All channels of the main gun are intact. The overheat value has returned to the state before firing, and we can continue to fire at any time. This is simply a miracle. What? Listening to the constant exclamations of the crew, Song Di-jun finally understood what the voice in his mind had given him. The biggest problem with the Thor's main gun is the cooling speed and energy consumption. And now, the muzzle that will not overheat and the energy reserves that will not be consumed, doesn't it mean unlimited bombardment? Continue the attack. Song Di-jun immediately ordered. As Song Di-jun's order was issued, the Thor's main gun continued to emit bright light, quickly clearing the battlefield. In the star map in front of Gaoqiang, it means that the red dots representing the Zerg are disappearing in patches. With 10 times the number of warships as humans, they were on the verge of failure. How is this possible? Wei Yan frowned tightly. His vision was not wrong. Even with the support of the giant ship Thor, humans would definitely lose. But why? It seems that humans are about to win. The firepower of Thor became more and more fierce. Obviously, the victory was decided. The Zerg could only withdraw from the battlefield in disgrace and give up the interception of Thor. At this time, in front of Song Di-jun, Thor finally fell into a state of energy exhaustion. The voice in his mind sounded again. Complete my mission, and you will get more than you have now. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 386. Get more? Song Di-jun closed his eyes, but a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The voice in his mind had successfully proved the value to him. For a businessman, achieving 300% profit can trample all laws. Now the other party can bring him more than 300% profit, even if he sells his soul for this, why not? In a flash, Song Di-jun has made a choice. Looking at the people who are still celebrating for repelling the Zerg offensive, pass my order, let the 9th Fleet of the Consortium move to the original coordinates. That's right, he made the Consortium's ships invisible, isn't it for this moment? You want to break in by yourself, don't blame me for being cruel, Song Di-jun murmured. Sacrificing a lord can win the victory of this war game, there is no more cost-effective deal than this. However, in the main control room, the star map in front of Gaoqiang has marked all the units of the consortium. Among them, a large number of yellow light spots that suddenly left the team made it difficult for people not to care. Wei Yan looked at the trend of the yellow light spots and rubbed his chin. Ugh, it seems that their goal is quite clear. The yellow light spots almost perfectly bypassed the Zerg-occupied area and headed straight for Gaoqiang's location. Gaoqiang had just entered this war game, and the other party had found Gaoqiang's location so clearly in the galaxy. It was hard not to think too much. Should we give them a chance? Wei Yan turned and asked Gaoqiang. From the incredible victory just now and the current clear and directional target. Lord, you should have guessed something, right? Wait a minute, Gaoqiang shook his head for the time being. He already had the worst guess in his mind, but before that, he still had a little hope for the other party. This time he entered the war game, and it was also the first time he came into contact with the Bio group. No, there was no contact at all. The two sides had no grudges in the past and no grudges in the present. Perhaps everything the bio group did now was just a coincidence. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang found the pilgrim in the friend list and sent Ling Yanan what happened. After receiving the message, Ling Yanan, who was sitting at the workstation, frowned tightly. She said that she always felt that something was wrong with the bio group, and now it seems that there is indeed a problem. However, it was too hasty to start the war game just after entering it, no matter what the hatred was. Thinking of this, Ling Yanan contacted the merchant who sold her the coordinates of the rescue order. As expected, there was no response. Not only that merchant, but the entire bio group fell into a strange silence at this moment, and all the information Ling Yanan contacted seemed to have fallen into the sea. The other party unilaterally cut off contact with them. Dong. The sound of Ling Yanan knocking on the table made other communicators around cast surprised eyes. Seeing this, Ling Yanan hurriedly responded with an embarrassed smile, and then quickly sat down with a gloomy face. In any case, Gao Qiang is now the son of the saint. Even though Gao Qiang was no longer willing to participate in the war initiated by the saints, this identity was still there. Besides, the other party was still the person that Ling Yanan was responsible for. If Gao Qiang met with an accident, she would not have the face-to-face Aisier who entrusted him to her. Thinking of this, Ling Yanan contacted several people in the friend list at the same time. No one could escape unscathed after calculating the saints, even if the size of the bioconsortium was vaguely stronger than the saints. If they could be smarter and do better intelligence, they should understand. Don't mess with the crazy saint. While contacting everyone in the intelligence network, Ling Yanan looked at the information interface with Gao Qiang. After thinking for a moment, she sent out several messages. Pilgrim, the bio group has been completely disconnected. It seems that the other party has already made plans to tear their faces with us as soon as you entered this war game. Next, listen to me. Use some of the rescue orders I gave you earlier, and I will arrange reinforcements for you. Gao Qiang didn't read the rest of the words. After all, the bio group still betrayed his last trust. According to Ling Yanan's instructions, Gao Qiang used several rescue orders, but he didn't have much hope for it. Because he had a better choice. Thinking of this, Gao Qiang turned his head to look at Wei Yan and nodded heavily. At this time, Wei Yan showed an inexplicable smile, and in the interface that Gao Qiang could see, one of Wei Yan's characteristics was suddenly unlocked. Not giving up an inch of land. Introduction: if anyone dares to step into our territory, they will despairingly find that even the air they breathe will be full of malice towards them. Effect: when this unit is used as an officer, the range of all units in our territory is increased by 100%. At this time, Wei Yan took the lead in sending a communication signal to the 9th Fleet, which was heading towards the ideal city. On the flagship of the 9th Fleet, a fat lord was still happily holding a wine glass and gesturing to the many lords in front of him. My cousin is in a good mood today. If my cousin is in a good mood, I, Song Ren, will be in a good mood. To celebrate the success of the consortium's first round of counterattack against the Zerg, I toast everyone today. Come, drink. Facing Song Ren, the surrounding lords naturally did not dare to neglect him. They stood up with their glasses raised and toasted Song Ren. In fact, they kept cursing Song Ren for being nosy. Now the 9th Fleet is crossing the Zerg blockade. If all the leaders drink until they lose consciousness, they may not have the chance to wake up next time. But they have to drink this wine. Song Ren is a department manager under Song Dijun, and he is also Song Dijun's distant cousin. To Song Dijun, although Song Ren is incompetent, he is loyal. Relying on the blood relationship, Song Ren's position as department manager is stable. For this reason, in the bioconsortium where the drinking table culture is prevalent, most of the lower-level lords can only act according to Song Ren's expression. Fortunately, Song Ren's alcohol tolerance is not good. After just a few drinks, his fat face was already slightly flushed. Manager Song, I see you are tired too, how about I take you home? A sharp-eyed lord stepped forward and wanted to help Song Ren. Snap. Song Ren slapped the other person away with a slap, and 2 streams of alcohol came out of his nose. I'm not drunk, what do you mean? Do you look down on me? Of course not. The person who spoke hurriedly made amends, but he cursed in his heart. Song Ren, you sent an unkind and unjust Ren, God knows that sentence will make the other party react. Losing the position in the consortium is a small matter, I am afraid that I will lose my life at that time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 387. However, just when the speaker was in a dilemma. In front of the flagship bridge, the screen that was originally recording the ship parameters was suddenly hijacked, and a live broadcast screen also appeared on the screen. In an instant, the crew in the bridge was in chaos. Someone invaded our flagship, quickly repair the firewall. No, the source of the invasion cannot be found. The other party hid the address and hijacked our internal server. Oops, the administrator's authority is lost. Now we only have the right to use the flagship. The chaotic bridge attracted Song Ren's attention. Seeing the chaos below, Song Ren snorted coldly and staggered forward with a big belly. Enough. An angry shout scared many crew members. Your loyalty to the people -1. Listening to the prompts in his ears, Song Ren just coldly swept through the many crew members below and ignored them. Then he turned his eyes to the hijacked screen. Across the screen, Gao Qiang and his people were sitting together, watching the farce in Song Ren's bridge. Gulp. Sasha drank some juice. Seeing Song Ren's eyes, she waved her hand and said, "Why are you looking at me? Just continue. I don't have any experience in giving birth to teach you." Hearing this, Song Ren's forehead was bulging with veins. Everyone who knows him knows that he hates others saying that he is fat. You dare to humiliate my weight? No, Sasha is just telling the truth. Sasha's eyes swept over Song Ren, and it was estimated that a roasted suckling pig weighing 300 kilograms would be this fat. It looks like you are about to give birth. You still have to work even in this state. It's really pitiful. Won't your boss give you maternity leave? Hearing the tone of pity in Sasha's voice that didn't seem fake, Song Ren's face became more distorted. He fiercely swept his eyes over the people on the other side of the screen, as if he wanted to remember all their faces in his mind. It's just a group of humans. I didn't expect that in this war game, there would be a scattered lord who dared to touch the bad luck of the Bio Consortium. Hijacking the flagship's communications is a small matter, but humiliating your weight is a big matter. Combined with the two, the other party may not have a chance to leave this battle. Song Ren's drunken face revealed a gloom. This manager is not good at speaking. Do you dare to leave your name? This manager will come to visit you in person later. If it were the usual scattered lord, he would really be intimidated by Song Ren's momentum. But obviously Sasha didn't have this awareness. Poking Gao Qiang's waist with her elbow, Sasha blinked her big eyes at Gao Qiang. Hurry, Lord, tell him what your name is. By the way, remember to remind him to bring more delicious food when he comes to visit. With this posture, those who don't know would think that Song Ren is coming to give gifts. Seeing that Sasha was not scared by his momentum at all, Song Ren felt hot all over, and anger accumulated in his heart. If it weren't for the screen, he would have rushed forward to fight with Sasha to the death. Until Gao Qiang gave his name. Gao Qiang. Hearing this familiar name, Song Ren was subconsciously stunned, and he was 7 points sober. Song Ren's expression changed several times in a few seconds. Then he asked bluntly, "Are you the one my cousin wants me to kill?" When he said this, Song Ren was completely unaware that the lords behind him were constantly winking at him. He also didn't feel the air on the other side of the screen was a little colder. "You want to kill us?" Gao Qiang asked in a cold tone. "Can I ask why? If I remember correctly, there should have never been any conflict between you and me, right?" Song Ren sneered. "Then I don't know, I only know that my cousin wants to kill you, it's that simple." After confirming that Gao Qiang in front of him was the Gao Qiang that Song Dijun wanted to kill, Song Ren looked at Gao Qiang as if he was looking at a dying person. He thought that the person who hijacked the communication was a different kind of person, but he didn't expect it to be a short-lived ghost who was about to die. "I'll tell you the truth. The Ninth Fleet under my control has no less than 1,000 starships, and I know your location very well. You can be proud now, but when I come to you, you will cry and beg me." Looking at Song Ren's smug expression, Wei turned to look at Gao Qiang, and asked hesitantly, "Have your enemies always been so confident?" He has now hijacked the communication module of the flagship of the Ninth Fleet. The transponder is also inside. In order to avoid the encirclement of the Zerg, the entire Ninth Fleet was traveling in stealth mode with the transponder turned off. That is to say, as long as Wei gently turns on the transponder of Song Ren's flagship, the Zerg that sensed Song Ren's location would rush up at lightning speed and completely submerge the thousands of starships mentioned by Song Ren. So Wei really couldn't think of what Song Ren was confident about. Faced with Wei An's question, Gao Qiang just shook his head helplessly. A small part, he is more confident than those who used to be so arrogant. "Oh, right." Gao Qiang looked at Song Ren on the other side of the screen and pointed at the top of his head. "Can't you really see the words here? As a lord, the other party should be able to see the gap between him and himself. Just like now, in Gao Qiang's eyes, Song Ren's economic strength, technological strength, and even military strength are as humble as ants compared to his own. Those 4 words are so humble that they are green." As early as when he saw the battle power comparison, Gao Qiang estimated that he would win again this time. Compared with the Time Lord, the opponent really does not bring any sense of oppression. After being reminded by Gao Qiang, Song Ren glanced at the words above Gao Qiang's head. 3 bright red gods appeared in front of Song Ren. In return, Song Ren only sneered. Under the influence of alcohol, he could not see the 3 lines of small words so far away clearly. Even if he could see them clearly, he would only think that Gao Qiang was playing tricks. Seeing this, Gao Qiang could only shake his head helplessly and give his body to Wei, who was already a little impatient. Damn ghost, he couldn't persuade him. As a reinforcement coming to support, Gao Qiang should still be considered a friend of the Bai group. Unfortunately, the other party insisted on destroying him. "Then I guess we can only be friends in the next life." After grabbing the main seat, Wei looked at Song Ren and smiled sarcastically. "We need an isolation belt to ensure that our sovereignty is not violated, and you and I should know that you can't be this isolation belt. I have the ability to kill you right now, but I won't do it. Do you know why?" "Why?" Song Ren asked subconsciously. Wei glanced at the star map. In the star map, because Wei did not turn on the transponder of the Ninth Fleet, the Ninth Fleet had safely passed through the Zerg blockade and was heading towards the ideal city quickly. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, Mi Shida Di. Chapter 388. Yes, why? Wei raised a faint smile. So you haven't realized it correctly until now. To deal with a weakling like you, do we need to use any means? One more thing. You are too close to us. While speaking, Wei had already smashed a button in the main control room. The Ninth Fleet led by Song Ren, thousands of starships were instantly marked red in the star map. The diamond-shaped structures that were originally suspended outside the space station gradually opened up, and the moving position was aimed at the direction of the Ninth Fleet. Songren didn't even have a chance to notice, and saw dozens of beams of light cutting through the interstellar, sweeping through the Ninth Fleet like a blade. Because the speed of the beams appeared too fast, they quickly shrank. When Songren reacted, he only saw countless sparks bursting in the darkness, completing a gorgeous ending. According to the radar system currently configured by the Ninth Fleet, the flashing red alarm sounded through the flagship bridge only after the beams completely dissipated. Until then, the crew's terrified voices began to appear in the bridge. High energy reaction detected. We didn't have time to activate the deflector shield. We couldn't even detect how far away the other side was attacking. Wiping the cold sweat from his head, Songren was completely awakened by the smell of alcohol on his body. He couldn't imagine what would happen to him if the beam just now penetrated the flagship bridge without the deflector shield activated. Report the damage, Songren said tremblingly. After all, he has been a manager for so long, and he still has the ability to check the damage. Following Songren's order, the status map of the Ninth Fleet was projected into the bridge. On a projection screen, there were icons of thousands of starships, and most of them had been crossed out at this moment. The first assault echelon lost, 89%. All members of the second assault echelon were killed. The bombardment echelon lost, 45%. The bloody figures were displayed nakedly in front of many lords in the bridge. This. A lord looked at the scene and stood up in shock. It's useless, completely useless. After just one attack, the Ninth Fleet's losses exceeded 50%. You must know that they are the elite fleet within the consortium. Even when facing the powerful Zerg, they can easily hit a loss ratio of more than 3 times. But now, they have lost half of the fleet before even seeing the enemy. In addition to the standard ships and shield ships that serve as filling units, the losses of expensive bombardment ships and support ships have made many lords feel painful. At present, each of these warships has gathered the lords' efforts for more than 10 years, but the result is just wasted. But after reacting, many lords still breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Songren was ambitious and gathered everyone on the flagship for a banquet halfway through the march. Otherwise, in this round of attack, I don't know how many of them would have followed the warships that exploded. What should we do now? A lord turned to ask Songren for his opinion. So far, no enemy has appeared in their radar detection. The enemy's attack range is obviously beyond their visual range, which puts many lords in a dilemma, neither advancing nor retreating. Seeing that everyone looked at him with hope, Songren dripped a few drops of cold sweat on his forehead. Then he simply gritted his teeth. At worst, I will tell my cousin and give up this mission. He is Song Dijun's cousin, so he doesn't need to lose his life for a human lord. Yes, that's right. Songren raised his head. Quickly dial my cousin's communication channel. A crew member opened his mouth to remind everyone that they had just left the patrol range of the Zerg. If we contact the external communication channel rashly now, we may be caught by the free swarm of insects. But seeing Songren's bloodshot eyes, he shut his mouth obediently. This scene was naturally broadcast live to Gao Qiang's control room. Gao Qiang turned his head and looked at Weiyan, who was still mocking him. Aren't you going to stop him? Stop, why stop? Weiyan shook his head decisively. He looked at the star map in front of him, stretched out a finger, and pointed in the direction of the Ninth Fleet. If all your enemies are only at this level, it would be too boring. They can't even get close to our airspace. Gao Qiang looked at the star map thoughtfully, and more at the building that had just launched the beam. Garden Outpost. Introduction. Our territory is our forest farm. In our forest farm, we can arbitrarily trim those things that don't suit our wishes. Features: Ultimate Central Control, Forest Sentry Mode. Ultimate Central Control. This unit can perform ultra-long-range micron-level laser operations, with enough accuracy to support a cross-planet minimally invasive surgery. Forest Sentry Mode. After this unit transforms into an attack state, the basic range is equivalent to the scope of our territory. Is it enough to cover the attack range of the entire territory? Gao Qiang made a rough calculation in his mind. The basic attack range is equivalent to the territory coverage area, plus the range added by the 30 layers of cycle technology, and the 100% range added by the security characteristics. After multiplying layer by layer, the attack radius of the garden outpost is several times the radius of Gao Qiang's airspace. And the garden outpost is also equipped with a terrifying weapon. Gardening Shear's Beam Spectrum. Introduction: release neutron beams with a diameter range of 1 micron to 300 meters, which can instantly destroy any unshielded shield and 100% penetrate basic physical armor. After continuing to open the details interface of gardening shears, Gao Qiang found that in the definition of the data, the main function of gardening shears is not a weapon. The primary purpose of this beam spectrum is to be used as a medical device. As described in the garden outpost, through the garden outpost, Gao Qiang can arbitrarily trim those things that do not meet his wishes. Among them, diseases are also included. The fast neutron beam released by the garden outpost is a powerful weapon for treating cancer diseases, and it can be directly treated above the planetary orbit, saving the time of seeking medical treatment. In other words, the 9th fleet that came to kill him was instantly wiped out by his medical equipment. After thinking through the reason, Gao Qiang could also understand Wei An's boredom. For now, the strength shown by the Bioconsortium is still too weak. It is so weak that a large-scale fleet attack can't even stimulate Gao Qiang. At most, looking at Song Ren's body shape makes Sasha's appetite better. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 389. Gao Qiang even felt that the garden outpost could directly kill the flagship of the White Feather Consortium fleet in the previous attack. Wei An specifically refused to do that, probably because he already had other ideas in his mind. At this time, Tiankensing was in the airspace. Song Dijun, who was still finishing the battle with the Zerg fleet, suddenly received a communication from Song Ren. When he opened the communication, Song Ren's crying face was completely plastered on the screen in front of Song Dijun. Cousin, you have to make the decision for me. Song Dijun frowned slightly, having a bad premonition in his heart. Sure enough, what Song Ren said next made Song Dijun almost have a heart attack. In other words, under your wise command, not only was the authority of the flagship hijacked, but half of the fleet was destroyed without even seeing the enemy. Staring at Song Ren behind the screen, Song Dijun gritted his teeth and asked, while emphasizing the words wise command. Cousin. Seeing that something was obviously wrong with Song Dijun's face, Song Ren's voice couldn't help but weaken by 3 points. But now, Song Dijun looked at Song Ren with only disappointment. You idiot, you have never done anything right. Cousin, I don't quite understand. Seeing Song Ren's confused expression, Song Dijun couldn't help but become even more angry. Not understand? Okay, then I'll explain it to you. First, why don't you contact me through the war game instead of using the starship's communication channel? Just to put your ugly face in front of me and tell the Zerg that your plump piece of meat is near them. Hearing this, Song Ren's face turned pale. If anyone else dared to yell at him like this, he would definitely not listen to a word. But the person who said this was his cousin Song Dijun, who was also the highest-ranking executive of the Bioconsortium in the current war game. Cousin, I was wrong, Song Ren said weakly. Are you wrong? Song Dijun was so angry that he laughed out loud. No, it was my fault. I shouldn't have trusted your pig brain. And you think I'm done? Then let me tell you, secondly, you didn't realize at all that the communication you dialed me has ruined your last hope of survival. What? Before Song Ren could react, he felt hot all over his body, and then he could no longer feel the presence of his body. Sizzling. Looking at the interrupted communication channel in front of him, Song Dijun's expression became more and more gloomy. He understood that Song Ren was dead. Since the opponent has an over-the-horizon strike that makes the Ninth Fleet unable to even defend itself, why should Song Ren's flagship be spared in the first round of strikes? If it were Song Dijun in command, he would never miss the opportunity to eliminate the enemy's flagship. But since the other party has done this, there is only one possibility. They are very confident, or they are arrogant and proud. They believed that they could deal with Song Ren. Even if a mere flagship was retained, it would not cause much trouble. So they kept Song Ren here just to humiliate themselves. Okay, good. Song Dijun said through gritted teeth. I thought it was as easy as a bird eating a worm, but I never expected to be blinded by a poisonous snake. If Song Ren could be smarter, he would break into the Zerg patrol area again as soon as possible and use the Zerg as a human shield. Even though he narrowly escaped death, there was still a chance of survival. But he chose to contact himself and fulfilled the wishes of those bastards. That's right, what Song Dijun hated was not Song Ren's death, but the trouble Song Ren's death caused to him. But after a moment, Song Dijun maintained an angry attitude and asked the voice in his head, what should we do? The Ninth Fleet has been buried, which is equivalent to burying 1/20th of the main force of the consortium. Although Gao Qiang has just entered this war game, Song Dijun is someone who likes to speak with facts. Now Gao Qiang has proven his terror. Since Gao Qiang can handle 1/9th Fleet, he can naturally handle the other 7th Fleet and 8th Fleet. Continuing to send more troops is just to save Grandpa. But even now, Song Dijun did not regret taking on the task of getting rid of Gao Qiang. He is not optimistic that high strength can threaten the Zerg. After all, the number of Zerg warships is hundreds and thousands of times that of the human race. Now the only one who can help the human race win this war game is Song Dijun. Faced with Song Dijun's question, he gave the solution without hesitation in mid-air, wait. Today, 1 week from now, will be the day he dies. At the same time as the sound appeared, Song Dijun suddenly felt blessed. Detailed information about the theory of degeneration appeared in Song Dijun's mind out of thin air. Seeing this, Song Dijun looked happy. That is to say, every week that passes, the upper limit of that guy's technology tree will drop by 1 era. According to the information of degeneration theory, after this week, the upper limit of the high-strength technology tree will drop to at least the 5th level. The gap between the 5th level and the 6th level is very big. Because the 5th level technology tree probably only reaches the level of the industrial age, information age, and electrical age, and no matter how strong it is, it will not reach the age of apocalypse. In these times, satellites are already a rare space force, and any starship in the past is like a dimensionality reduction attack. Thinking of this, Song Dijun couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha. The voice in his mind has more power than he imagined. But it is precisely because of these mysterious and terrifying forces that he can better help him eliminate the Zerg and win this war game. As for Gao Qiang, Song Dijun looked outside the bridge. Why can't that person die obediently? Pass my order and tell the 13th Fleet of the Consortium to set off immediately to take over the original mission of the 9th Fleet. Remember to remind them to move forward steadily and arrive at the mission location in only 1 week. After issuing the order, Song Dijun sat in the position of the captain of the Thor. Next, it is time to consider how to quickly clear the Zerg combat units with the help of the voice in his mind. As for Gao Qiang, a fleet of the Bio Consortium, the formation size is basically maintained at around 1,000 starships. Thousands of starships are going to bully a personal lord whose upper limit is only the industrial age. Does he still need to worry? At the same time, Gao Qiang has seen the movement of the 13th Fleet in the star map in front of him. Obviously, another brand new fleet is coming towards him. However, judging from the speed of this fleet, they will not be able to enter Gao Qiang's attack range for a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 390. Under the deliberate avoidance of the Bioconsortium, just 1 week passed in the blink of an eye. This week the whole star system was calm. Even the Zerg were not in a hurry to immediately launch the next round of attack after encountering a round of indiscriminate bombardment by the Thor's unlimited firepower. The Zerg are dormant, and the White Feather Consortium is also dormant. And today is the day when the theory of degeneration comes into effect. In the flagship of the 13th Fleet, a middle-aged man wearing a black and white dress stood in front of the light curtain. Song Dijun's figure emerged behind the curtain of light. "The time has come, go and bring me the bones of our enemy," Song Dijun said slowly. The middle-aged man did not speak, but just bowed, indicating that he would not disappoint the other party's high expectations. Song Dijun stared at the middle-aged man standing upright and narrowed his eyes. "Song Yi, you know the rules of the consortium, don't let Song Ren's death affect your judgment. Otherwise, you should understand what I will do." "Yes." Seeing the other party's response, Song Dijun nodded and disappeared in the light curtain. After seeing Song Dijun leave completely, Song Yi turned his head, with a hint of hatred on his calm face. "No matter how useless my good brother is, it is not his turn to be killed by an outsider." That's right. Compared with Song Dijun's somewhat distant relative relationship, Song Ren and Song Yi are real brothers, with an age difference of only a few years. Song Yi slowly closed his eyes and recalled the scene when he was young. The parents named the two Renai, hoping that they would be kind and righteous, and that they would complement each other in the future, and the two brothers would support each other and move forward together. But on the road of growth, the two gradually went in different directions. Relying on his kinship with Song Dijun, one man attained enlightenment and chickens and dogs ascended to heaven. Song Ren gradually became flattering and greedy for pleasure day and night. Song Yi, on the other hand, doesn't think it's a good choice to place hope on others. Therefore, although he was also promoted to the position of department manager by Song Dijun, his personal ability is quite outstanding and is not inferior to any manager in any consortium. "Being able to kill my good brother doesn't mean he can kill me." He spoke slowly in a voice that only he could hear. Song Yi raised his head and said, "The whole army listens to my order." The decoy ship turns on the cargo ship's communication signal and lures the Zerg wandering fleet away from the battlefield. The firepower ships retracted their front, and the standard aircraft ships spread out in a dispersed formation, preparing to intervene on the battlefield. Song Yi issued orders one after another. In the star map in front of Gaoqiang, countless yellow light spots scattered in all directions. Compared to Song Ren's shrinking tactic of gathering all the starships together, the formation arranged by Song Yi made good use of the vast space of the universe. Since the standard ships are dispersed enough, even if the insect swarm fleet attacks, they will be the first to be dragged into a meat-crushing battle by the outermost standard ships. This kind of defense line for mincing meat was arranged in 3 layers by Song Yi, just to leave enough output space for the firepower ship. At this time, the firepower ship that has obtained a safe output environment can pour its own firepower to the outside world to the greatest extent. It seems they want to use this method to prevent us. Wei An looked at other parts of the star map. Far away from the 13th Fleet, the decoy ship turned on the communication transponder without hesitation, exposing its position to the galaxy. After receiving the signal, countless red dots representing the Zerg began to rush towards the position of the bait ship, creating a small temporary safe zone for the 13th Fleet. The other side's commander is quite interesting. Wei An smiled. He could completely understand why the other party did this. Because they were afraid that Gaoqiang would use the same method to hijack the flagship administrator's rights. The commander was a smart man, so he knew what the consequences would be if the location of the large army was exposed to the Zerg. It's a pity that he didn't have to do that at all. Wei An shook his head helplessly. His personality was not the kind of person who liked to rely on external help. He loves war, and even more enjoys the joy of commanding troops with his own hands and crushing the enemy. On the other hand, Gao Qiang's thoughts were somewhat different from Wei An's. Looking at his personal dashboard, the countdown to degeneration theory has been less than 1 minute. Even if you want to hijack the other party's communication channel now, I'm afraid it's too late. Because the upper limit of the powerful technology tree will soon be locked to a maximum of 5 levels. Not knowing what would happen after triggering the theory of degeneration, Gao Qiang subconsciously still had some expectations. Next, it should be about entering a defensive phase of up to 5 weeks and as short as 1 week, right? This may also be the only chance for the opponent to kill him in this war game. Under Gao Qiang's gaze, the countdown to the theory of degeneration slowly reached single digits. 32,1. Your characteristic degeneration theory has been triggered. Forward is retreat, tomorrow is weaker than today this week, the upper limit of your technology tree is, industrial age, level 5. All your buildings and military forces are in a regress state and will be transformed into industrial age units year on year. War game tips dropped. Gao Qiang saw the scene in front of him change. The high command located in the orbit of the planet slowly fell downwards, breaking through the atmosphere and landing on the ground. Correspondingly, all garden outposts also left the orbit of the planet and were converted into ground buildings. At the same time, the appearance of the entire ideal city has changed, from the countless high-rise buildings reaching into the sky to industrial buildings billowing black smoke. The only thing that has not changed is the number of powerful citizens and the miraculous characteristics of the ideal city. So, is this the effect of degeneration theory? After everything was transformed, Gao Qiang finally understood the source of Paradox's confidence to rely on the degeneration theory to kill him. This miraculous effect does not only target the upper limit of the technology tree. With the activation of the miracle effect, all existing things will fall into degradation and transform into products of a weaker era. Like now. Because the technology tree was suppressed to level 5, and after losing the upper limit of the technology tree of the 1000 Stars era, Gao Qiang lost his space defense power in an instant. At this time, there were ripples in the sky. Countless starships entered the planetary orbit of Ideal City, and the falling shadows even blocked a large amount of sunlight. The 13th Fleet of the White Feather Consortium has officially entered the battlefield. Sir, do you want to start bombing immediately? In the flagship of the 13th Fleet, a crew member asked Song Yi for instructions. No. It was clear that the target was close at hand, but Song Yi still shook his head decisively. Staring at the ideal city below, Song Yi had an inexplicable look in his eyes. He admitted that Gao Qiang's territory was beyond his expectation. The entire planet is covered with buildings, without even a single spare space. Lord of all people, am I the only one in the fallen empire? Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 391. Even after decades of development on this battlefield, no lord dares to say that his territory is as prosperous as Gao Qiang, who just entered the battlefield. It's hard to imagine how powerful Gao Qiang was before he encountered the degeneration theory. It was indeed a waste for such a powerful lord to die here like this. Song Yi's eyes flashed with an imperceptible look of covetousness. He actually has a secret hidden deep in his heart. That was his personal gift. Those who achieve first come first. Effect, you can learn a lord's personal talent to replace your own. This can be said to be a one-time ability. After learning it once, the talent of being the first to master it will no longer exist. In order to maximize profits, Song Yi has been looking for a qualified person over the years. Once, he wanted to learn from Song Dijun's talent, but it took a long time to learn successfully. With the relationship between Song Dijun and him, it would be difficult for him to find an opportunity to be close to Song Dijun for a long time. But now, after seeing Gao Qiang's strong development level, he felt that Song Dijun's talent did not seem to be worth learning. "We can't just kill him," Song Yi whispered. "At least let him survive these few days." The learning scope of the masters first increased with the advancement of the times. By the 1000 planets era, the learning scope was enough to cover the planets below. According to the learning efficiency of masters first, it only takes 1 to 5 days to study from weak to strong personal talents. Even if Gao Qiang's personal talent is so strong that it takes him 5 days to learn it, the remaining 2 days are enough for the 13th fleet to turn the planet below into a sea of fire. On the one hand, it can complete the task of getting rid of Gao Qiang within a week. On the other hand, after receiving such a terrifying personal talent, his status within the consortium will naturally rise. An inexplicable look flashed through Song Yi's eyes. Song Dijun can take the position of chief executive, why can't he? He is Song Yi, a righteous person who is neither benevolent nor unjust. Pass my order to rest the entire army for 5 days and set up a defense line outside the planet to be alert to the Zerg invasion. Song Yi's order was quickly passed on. It is obvious that Song Yi's words are still very weighty. Although many lords of the 13th Fleet were confused about Song Yi's order, they still carried out Song Yi's order without hesitation. After doing all this, Song Yi looked down with expectant eyes. "Gao Qiang, I don't know what kind of surprise your personal talent can bring to me." In the high-power high command below, the expected orbital bombardment never came down. Thousands of starships were placed above the orbit of the planet like model toys, making even the high-strength people confused as to what the other party meant. Hit or not, does he still want to scare me to death? Wei An's expression on the side was also filled with confusion. He thought that after the arrival of the 13th Fleet, a gorgeous explosion would become the trigger for the epic battlefield. But now, the 13th Fleet has given him a big trouble. How could you live up to my expectations like this? Wei An lowered his head, and there was even a hint of grievance in his voice. Seeing this, Shasha reached out and patted Wei An on the forehead. "Don't cry, Uncle Wei An." As she said this, Shasha looked at the traditional meat skewers that Juluo had just taken. After hesitating for a moment, he still stuffed it into his mouth. Wei An's mood froze. Just now, even for a moment, he thought Shasha was going to use food to appease his soul. In the end, he thought too much. At this time, Shasha's hand was still on Wei An's head. Since she was much shorter than Wei An, she looked a little funny. "Have I ever told you that the way you comfort people is really humiliating?" Wei An said helplessly. If so many people weren't watching, he really wanted to arrest Shasha and educate her on what it meant to respect elders. But now, "I'm not crying." Wei An shook his head and stood up from his seat. "Passed by you, Shasha." Surveillance pictures appeared in front of Wei An. Although the Supreme Command fell from the sky into the mortal world due to the upper limit of the technology tree, but the various equipment it contains are enough for Wei An. Is going forward the same as going backward? Caressing the console that lacks some sense of science fiction, Wei An let out a few sighs. "It turns out it's you." Suddenly, Wei An changed the topic and smiled towards Gao Qiang. "Lord, do you know? The reason why we are so powerful is not because the upper limit of the technology tree is only that high, but because being so powerful is enough. No matter how terrible our enemies are, our ancestors will always leave us a shelter that can protect us from wind and rain. Now, since they are unwilling to take the initiative to attack, let them see our power." Boom! Wei An slammed his fist down on the console. A command prompt instantly appeared in the main control room. 01 Armored Division has received the order to attack. Armored Division? Gao Qiang wiped his eyes and confirmed that the screen at the high command was not damaged. In other words, Wei An is preparing to use the Armored Division to fight against the fleet of the White Feather Consortium in the sky. How to deal with this? As Gao Qiang looked curiously, he saw the surveillance image on the screen change. Tracked tanks that obviously did not have the suspension technology actually rose steadily in the surveillance image, and were about to break free from the atmosphere. They are just ordinary tanks, Wayan explained, with a smile in his eyes. This is the upper limit of our technology tree. But as long as there is a shadow over our heads, we will never have an upper limit. While Wayan was talking, Gao Qiang also opened the attribute interface of those tanks that took off. Type 00 Main Battle Tank. Introduction: the eternal overlord of the industrial age, powerful, advanced, sturdy, and unstoppable. Toughness, 50 at 360, circular technology. Features: extremely sturdy, light infantry crushing, infantry unit fear. From the introduction to the characteristics, everything Gao Qiang saw was in line with the logic of the industrial age. According to common sense, even if this kind of weapon has not been eliminated in the Galaxy era, it is impossible to threaten the status of starships, let alone influence the situation of interstellar wars. Unless, the ancestors who left Gao Qiang a shadow, reached the pinnacle in tank manufacturing and studied the technology of 120 repetitions. Weight reduction, 120. Introduction: we try to reduce the burden on our tanks to provide less fuel consumption and faster movement speed. Effect: tanks are affected by gravity by -1%. Vian raised his head. How powerful we are depends only on ourselves. Never underestimate the wisdom of our ancestors.